This is some good news. News broke that this was going to happen a few months ago, but it finally did. Nicaragua takes Germany to court over supplying arms to Israel. So a new ICJ case is on the way, not against Israel itself, but against Germany for enabling genocide. Nicaragua, a long-standing supporter of the Palestinian cause, is broadening the legal battle over the Gaza conflict at the International Court of Justice by bringing a case against Germany, a major supplier of arms to Israel. They can't bring it against us because we don't recognize these international courts because we commit a lot of war crimes, so we can't have anything to do with them. In hearings that opened on Monday in The Hague, Nicaragua argued that Germany is facilitating the commission of genocide in Gaza and violating the Genocide Convention by providing Israel with military and financial aid. Carlos Jose Arguello Gomez, Nicaragua's ambassador to the Netherlands, told the court that it does not matter if an artillery shell is delivered straight from Germany to an Israeli tank shelling a hospital or goes to replenish Israel's stockpiles. The fact is that the assurance of supplies and replacement of armaments is crucial to Israel's pursuit of the attacks in Gaza, he told the court, saying that Germany is aware of the serious risk of genocide being committed. Nicaragua asked the court to issue emergency orders, saying that as a party to the Genocide Convention, Germany must immediately suspend military aid to Israel and ensure that its supplies already in the country are not unlawfully used. Lawyers say that Germany, Israel's second largest arms provider after who? The United States, of course, is an easier target for a suit than the United States. Germany has granted full jurisdiction to the International Court of Justice, the United Nations' highest court. But the United States, as I mentioned earlier, denies its jurisdiction except in cases where Washington explicitly gives its consent. So we have to agree to be tried for war crimes. You can't just try us. We have to agree to let you accuse us of genocide. Funny how that works. Nicaragua's case is the third before the court this year that deals with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As we all know, South Africa first sought emergency measures from the court, arguing that Israel was at risk of committing genocide, an assertion that the court found plausible, but that Israel has strongly denied. The court ordered Israel to ensure that its citizens and soldiers do not violate the Genocide Convention, which Israel has signed. The convention forbids actions intended to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. That is part of Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. I believe that's item D, but there are a few different ones. But the most important point here is that you do not have to be hell-bent on eliminating every member of the group. Destroying, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, and it goes on, in order to make their society unlivable, that constitutes genocide. In February, this is the second court case that didn't get nearly as much press attention as the first, pardon me. In February, the court also took up a case requested by the United Nations General Assembly on the legality of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories. Those hearings, planned long before the war, heard from more than 50 countries, most of which vented anger and frustration at Israel's attacks on Gaza and the worsening death toll among civilians. That's interesting. I had not even heard of that until I looked this case up, that there was a case disputing the legality of the settlements that was on the calendar pre-October 7th. And then, of course, this one is the third. The Nicaraguan case is far broader in its scope than South Africa's, invoking both violations of the Geneva Conventions and the Convention Against Genocide and requiring the protection of civilians. It also accuses Israel of other unlawful conduct in the occupied territories. Supporting Israel is seen as a historic duty in Germany in light of the Holocaust, but the mounting toll in Gaza has pushed some German officials to ask whether that backing has gone too far. The recent intense activity at the court has put it in a rare spotlight. Lawyers say that countries have turned to the court because efforts by the United Nations and other negotiators have failed so far to stop the war in Gaza. Quote, the ICJ is not going to end the war in Gaza, but it is a diplomatic tool that foreign policy uses to apply additional pressure in Israel, said Brian Finucane, or Finucane, whatever that name is. That's a hard one. A senior advisor at the International Crisis Group, a think tank for conflict resolution. In the Nicaragua case, it further applies pressure on Germany. So here is a representative from Nicaragua making the case, and this is translated here, so we're going to hear the translator talk over him, but this is a good piece of video here.
President, Germany has done everything. Mr. President, Germany has done everything to repent for the Shoah, and this is to their honor. Germany is shocked that we even dare to accuse it of assisting in genocide and even of not scrupulously respecting international humanitarian law norms, which are also at stake in this case. Just as Israel, which is the Jewish state and the victim of the horrific Shoah, that Israel is appalled that we could accuse it of genocide. However, nobody owns the trademark of genocide. No state, not Israel, not Germany,
oh my God,
can be free of the fundamental rules of international law under the pretext that they can defend themselves or aid the victim of such an attack to defend themselves. You must, members of the court, recall this with the means that are yours, the weapon of law. And this is what Nicaragua is asking of you.
So what he's basically saying there is what the article referenced, that Germany has gone to great pains to atone for the crimes of the Third Reich, so much so that they have now turned a blind eye to a genocide happening with their support and with their help. And that we cannot say that Germany, in its attempt to atone for its past sins, can now be given a blank check to sign off on another genocide, ironically and tragically, of course, being committed by the beneficiaries of their help. And so that's the Nicaraguan case. Now, here is the German case, still clinging to the old self-defense defense.
Article 1 and parallel customary law prohibits states from encouraging violations of IHL. However, this provision does not generate a negative obligation to refrain completely from military support to a state involved in an armed conflict. Common Article 1 does not and cannot block all transfer of aid to a state that might exercise its right to self-defense. Such a blanket prohibition would be nonsensical because it would be incompatible with every state's right to support countries acting in self-defense.
Well, it's not a blanket prohibition.
right?
It's about singling out this particular conflict. And in this particular example, obviously, Israel has made a mockery of the self-defense argument. Just look at the videos. You've all seen hundreds, if not thousands of them by now,
And
of entire cities leveled, no functioning healthcare centers, no functioning universities, no schools, no mosques, most residential buildings leveled. You can't call that self-defense. You can't invoke self-defense as a rationale for continuing to supply weapons. In 6 months later, you're going to try to invoke self-defense. Then again, if you have to make an argument before the court, what other is there to make? I mean, there are no good arguments. And so I believe, as apparently Warren came out and said that she believes that the International Court of Justice is going to side with Africa in the genocide argument, yeah, that would make Germany guilty by extension. And, of course, it would make us guilty as well. But we apparently have veto power over this court because we say so.
you know what I find interesting too, because I've talked on the show, and so have you. I talked on many times in your show, as have everyone else in independent media, how our politicians here in America are owned by AIPAC and other pro-Israeli groups. But think about the environment of fear that all these other governments have to deal with Israel, because they know it's wrong. They got people protesting it, but they have to be, you have the German government, you have the German representative saying, please reverse this decision. We shouldn't be associated with this. We're just helping them defend themselves. Well, that's no, this you are helping to contribute to the utter destruction of the people of Gaza. I have what I do know is in the aftermath, Gaza is not going to have the Israeli forces pull out. They're going to stay there. They turned that entire region into a moonscape. How does anyone or any institution that remains in Gaza rebuild without Israel breathing down their necks? They're going to occupy that land. They're not going to give it up. And I've seen a couple of videos on social media too, where you have Israeli settlers saying, let us in there so we can start building homes and businesses there. Really? And so this fits the profile of war crimes, of genocide. The whole world has remained silent on this. The whole idea of never again is a joke because it's happening right now.
That's right. It's not just Israel's failure or America's failure. This is the world's failure. I said this from day one, and I was just fact-checking this while you were talking because I want to make sure I get this right. I thought it was, and it was. Germany has supplied 30% of the weapons to Israel. That's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, nothing holds a candle to us. We are the biggest and most and best funded military on earth. So
of course
we are about double that. But Germany at 30%, that's a significant amount. That is a lot of firepower that they have given to the IDF. There are a lot of Palestinian men, women, and children who have found themselves on the receiving end of German weapons. And so, yeah, that makes you liable, that you are on the hook for that as a state. So are we. So is everybody. This is the world's failing. But that 30% number, given the size difference between Germany and the U.S., that is a significant number. There is a lot of blood on their hands for sure. And it's a good thing that they've been taken to court. Everybody needs to be held responsible for this because this is everybody's failure.
Please clap.